Yes, I can. Hold on. I was just writing the members down. All right, thank you all. Welcome to the meeting of the Salt Lake City Planning Commission for February 10th, 2021. I want to call the meeting to order. Before we begin, Michaela or whoever would like to tell people how they can participate in this meeting?
I would love to. Thank you. Tonight's the Planning Commission, February 10th, 2021. If you'd like to join this virtual Planning Commission meeting, you can input the link on your web browser, or you can visit our website after we take down this screen, and you can go to www.slc.gov/public-meetings/Planning Commission agendas minutes. And you click on today's date and the agenda, and that WebEx link is on tonight's agenda. If this is one of the first times that you've used WebEx to visit or to join a virtual meeting, we do also have a step-by-step instruction guide there. If you're having any issues, if you need help, if you'd like to send in some comments to be read into the record, please email us at planning.comments@slcgov.com. We have planning staff that is monitoring our email. I just wanted to give you all a heads up. I am hosting this meeting right now. However, my WebEx is acting quite strange right now.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully it will be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to read a declaration for you about this meeting. I, Brenda Shear, Chair of the Planning Commission, hereby determine that conducting the Salt Lake City Planning Commission meeting at an anchor location represents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location. The World Health Organization, the President of the United States, the Governor of Utah, the Salt Lake County Health Department, Salt Lake County Mayor, and the Mayor of Salt Lake City have all recognized a global pandemic exists related to the strain of coronavirus SARS-CoV-2. Due to the state of emergency caused by the global pandemic, I'm conducting a meeting at an anchor location under the current state of public health emergency constitutes a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at that location. So, going forward with our agenda tonight, I will now entertain a motion about the minutes. Approval of the
Madam Chair, I move that
minutes of the last meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion, Maureen, and a second from Carolyn. All in favor? All in favor. What am I doing? I'm going to call the roll now. We'll find out who's here. Matt?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Minutes approval?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Agree, yes.
Crystal?
Yes. Yes. Did you hear me?
Wow.
Yes.
I think we're having no, yeah.
I heard
Okay,
you,
thank
Crystal.
you. Okay, John?
Yes.
Thank you. Maureen?
Yes.
And I have it that Andres and Sarah are not here. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. The minutes are approved. And now we have the report of the chair and the vice chair, and I have nothing to report. Madam Vice Chair, do you have anything to report?
I do not.
Thank you. And the report of the director? Michaela, are you?
Nothing to report. Tonight, Wayne and I are on the meeting. I did want to mention one thing tonight. We don't anticipate any issues, but tonight the city at 8 o'clock will be doing an internal system upgrade to our VPN system. We don't anticipate a hiccup, but you know, such is life and COVID and us all being in virtual meetings. So I just wanted to throw that out there. We should be good. Hopefully. Thank you.
I'm hoping we will be good. Okay, we have a very brief agenda tonight, so perhaps we'll be finished before 8 o'clock, so we don't have to test the city's capabilities of running a VPN with us all on it. All right. So our first, I'm going to open up our set of public hearings today. The first one is the master plan and zoning map amendment at approximately 461 South, 400 East, case number PLN PCM 2020-00806 and PLN PCM 2020-00804. And Nanette will be handling this for the staff. Thank you. Nanette, are you ready?
I am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Marlene, can I get authorization to share my?
Michaela, can you move that for me? Thank you.
I got it. Things are a little slow.
No problem.
Yeah, mine is slow too.
Okay, is everyone able to see my screen? Okay, thank you. The applicant Majid with Next Step Group is requesting an amendment to the master plan future land use map and the zoning map for the property located at 461 South, 400 East. The proposal is to amend the master plan and rezone the property. The amendments proposed are for a redevelopment of the site that would accommodate residential, retail, and live work units and would eliminate the parking structures which front 500 South, 400 East, and Denver Street. Currently, the property is located in the RMU 45 district or residential mixed use. The applicant is proposing to rezone the site to TSA UNC or Transit Station Area Urban Neighborhood Core Zoning District. Staff reviewed the applicant with the applicant other districts to ensure the best compatibility with the surrounding community and found the TSA UNC to be the most appropriate to the area. This is due to the TSA district located to the north of the site, the proximity to transit, and the ability of the area to manage an increase in density, meeting the goals of the master plan and to focus development near the downtown core. The proposal also includes an amendment to the Central Community Master Plan future land use map from residential office mixed use to high density transit oriented development. Staff has found that amending this site from residential office mixed use to high density transit oriented development is appropriate in the master plan as the Central Community Master Plan promotes walkable development and fostering transit oriented development. Further, the citywide plan, Plan Salt Lake, also encourages transit oriented development while reducing citywide energy consumption. Staff has found that the proposed master plan amendment to redevelop the site meets the initiatives of Plan Salt Lake and the goals of the Central Community Master Plan through supporting transit-oriented development near transit of various modes. The site is also within the East Downtown Neighborhood Plan. Within this neighborhood plan is a view corridor and height limitation map to protect the view corridor for different landmarks in the community. The subject site is within the 75-foot height limitation recommendation. This height limitation is in line with the building height allowances of the proposed TSA UNC district. The subject site is located within an approximate 10-minute walk of 2 light rail stations. It is near 3 different designated bike lanes on 500 South and 3 and 600 East, and is near 2 bus routes located along 500 East and State Street. Further, this site is considered very walkable by its proximity to job centers, grocery stores, and hardware stores. This site is just outside the Central City Local Historic District as well. This is a key consideration in the redevelopment of this site. As the Central Community Business District, continues to grow and housing prices increase, there will be a continued increase in demand for housing and an increase in housing density. By focusing housing in areas of the city that are able to support an increase in density, it also alleviates the demand in areas of the city that do not have the infrastructure to support the density. It also assists in focusing development away from local historic districts and the future preservation of the historic built environment in the community. The TSA district allows for a more dense type of development through a reduction of setbacks as well as building height. This is because the TSA is encouraged in areas that has the infrastructure to manage an increase in density. The land uses permitted are generally the same in both districts with the exceptions on the presentation screen. The front yard in the RMU 45 district has a minimum required setback of 5 feet for a landscape space and a maximum of 15-foot setback. The TSA district permits buildings to be built to the property line with a maximum front and corner side yard setback of 5 feet. The interior side yard and rear yard requirements are the same in both districts. One more significant difference between the 2 districts is the design standards that are required. The TSA district requires a more strict design standard in the zone, which includes more strict standards for the percent of active ground floor uses, more durable ground and upper floor materials, the number of building entrances, and the building facade length that's permitted in the zone. While the TSA UNC district doesn't have a minimum setback, it is still similar to the existing districts and the surrounding zoning districts. The current RMU 45 district requires a 5-foot setback. This is the same for properties to the east and west of the subject site, all of which are also zoned RMU 45. The property to the south is in the RMU district. The RMU district does not require a setback and the building may be built to the property line. This district does have a maximum setback of 25 feet. The difference between the RMU 45 district and the TSA UNC district also includes the allowed building height. The permitted height in the RMU 45 district is 45 feet, but allows for structures up to 55 feet through a design review that is specific to the building height. The TSA UNC district allows for a maximum building height up to 75 feet. The difference between the 2 districts is about 2 stories. It's difficult to determine density potential on the site as there's so many variables that affect density like parking, building layout, land use, and residential unit size. Staff, however, doesn't anticipate negative outcomes because of an increase in density in this area. Not only is the site located near different modes of transit, it also borders 500 South and an arterial street, and to the south, 600 South, another major arterial street. Finally, looking at the surrounding districts, permitted building height to the east and west of the subject site also has a maximum permitted height of 45 feet with an allowed increase to 55 feet with a design review. To the immediate north of the site is a district that permits building up to 75 feet, and to the south of the site is the RMU district, which allows a non-residential building to be built to a height of 45 feet or a mixed-use building of 75 feet. The RO district to the south allows for a building height of 60 feet or if the parcel abuts a district that allows for a greater height, a 90-foot structure would be permitted. During the public review outreach process, staff received 2 comments that were positive to the proposed amendments. Planning staff is recommending Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to City Council for the master plan and zoning map amendments. And I believe I saw Majid in the panelist or the attendee section. And I will also be here if there's any questions for me as well.
Please let me know if I need to pass the
Okay. Does the applicant, do anyone have any questions for Nanette before we move on to the applicant?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I've got just a quick question. So I noticed kind of further east, the TSA UNC kind of fills the whole block, kind of on the, above 5th East, and kind of goes that way up until 7th East. I know there's also a transition zone that often is kind of tied into these TSA stuff, and I'm wondering if that was looked at or not, or if you feel like the transition is already adequate there, given that 5th South is a major thoroughway, as is 6th South.
When we were discussing with the applicant the type of zone that would be possible in this area, we did discuss the transition zone. One of the reasons why we didn't feel like it fit the best is the RMU district allows for a maximum height if it's mixed use of 75 feet. And if I remember correctly, the transition zone allowed for a height of 55 feet. So the RMU was essentially already acting as a type of transition zone. Also, this site is within a 10-minute walk of 2 transit stations. So it is very accessible to many different modes of transit.
So we're looking at essentially allowing, the big question is whether we're allowing and permitting more height on that parcel. Okay.
All right, let's move on to the F. Does anyone else have any questions for the applicant? I mean, for the staff? Can we go ahead and move on to allow the applicant to speak? Does the applicant want to make a presentation or speak?
Yes, Madam Chairman. I would like to do a short, brief presentation. And
Okay.
I have some slides. I'm not sure if that's possible to share that with you. I see a share button.
Just give it, yeah, go ahead and try. You'll have 10 minutes, no more than 10 minutes, sorry.
Madam Chairman, I'm an engineer by background, so we're not very talkative folks, so I doubt we'd get you 10 minutes, but I'll try.
Oh, it's always surprising, how, sometimes it sneaks up on you.
So would I have to upload the presentation or would you share the screen?
You could share the screen, Majid.
Okay, so I have my
Jed, are you seeing the share screen or the share button on your screen?
I just pushed it.
Okay. And usually what happens when you have to have the document that you would like to share open.
Which I have it open. Oh, I see. Okay, so this is where it says share.
There you go. Perfect.
Great.
So if everybody's able to see it, I would begin.
Yeah, we're able to see it, Majid.
Okay, great, thank you. So I'm here this evening on behalf of Nexup Group, which is the property owner. And Next Step is a small family business, which my dad and I started about 35 years ago. And we started remodeling a single family home. And we grew the business until we bought what we call 465 Plaza, which is at 461 South, back in 2004. We bought it as a long-term investment, and we intend to keep the property in the family. Just to give you a brief background, when we bought the property back in 2004, it was a neglected building that had not been maintained properly for a number of years. So we tried to upgrade the building. We removed the skin, which was an old Mansard style. You can see the left side of the floor. It was a Mansard style building. So we removed the skin. We tried to use different materials. We did EFS stucco. We did some metal. The building did have towers of fluted block, and we added some stone to make the building visually more pleasing. Also, we realized that the building didn't really have any energy efficient features, so we replaced the windows with double pane low eaves. We put heat pumps in. We put insulation in the walls and ceilings because to our dismay, there was no insulation in the building. And then we converted a significant amount of the grass within our property to drought tolerant drip irrigation. And we planted some native plants, and then we did some hardscape. And I think all of that was a significant upgrade considering what we had to work with. And we were proud of what we were able to do, and we were able to actually increase significantly the vacancy of the building. So between 2004 and 2008, we did that work and again raised the occupancy. And recently we have found out that that, as we all have noticed, there's a significant amount of development taking place in our neighborhood. Properties around us are getting redeveloped, and based on the age of our building, we think that in the future, we will also have to look into redevelopment. So we started looking at the properties that were north and south of us to get a feeling for what is potentially going to be developed, so that we had an idea of where we are and what, as far as compatibility with the neighborhood. As Nanette mentioned, properties north of us are TSA, UN, and last year a property south of us got rezoned to RMU. Our understanding is that in terms of density and height and setback, RMU and TSA are similar. So that brought us to the conclusion that a TSA would be an appropriate zoning for us as we move in the future to develop the property. As was mentioned before, some of the reasons that we believe that the rezone is warranted is the fact that we are within quarter mile of two track station, the trolley station and library station are within equal distance. And as I told Nanette, depending on which direction I'm going, I will take the trolley that brings me downhill to Denver Street. And that's one of them. The next one is, after we reviewed the documents that were prepared by the city or others as far as the growth and housing in Salt Lake is concerned, we found out that in this specific area, mid-block crossing is being encouraged. We have Denver Street as one of our side streets. That's what I take to go to the trolleys and to the tracks. And we're finding out that Denver would nicely fit for a enhanced walkable path and would serve as a mid-block crossing. One of the other issues that was brought up again was the fact that the building was built back in 70s, and as you can see in the in this slide, about 60% of our overall coverage is parking structures and parking. So out of the 2.5 acres, just about 1.5 acres of it is right now is being used as parking, and that's not something that city would like to see. Obviously, there are better use for the property, again, being in such close proximity of the track station. And by doing this and getting rid of or discouraging getting rid of the surface parking lots and the parkings, again, we're meeting one of the other goals of the documents that were prepared for development. One of the other points of this property when it comes to development would be that we have the size that would allow us to provide adequate open space, provide adequate active landscape, and also work with the mass and its scale to break up the development and provide a pleasant visual experience for people that walk by or that live in the future development. I believe that's my presentation at this point, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Would anyone on does anyone on the commission have questions for the applicant at this time? You will have a chance to respond to the public comments if there are any. So I'm going to go ahead.
Madam Chair, I have a question. I
Sure.
would just like to hear your thoughts on why you feel like the RMU 45 isn't an adequate zone for you to redevelop.
Well, I think portion of that goes back again to the fact that the properties to the north of us and to the south of us have a more intense and have the ability to develop to a higher height limits.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm sorry. So I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. So do we have any people? I see one hand. Any?
I have Zach.
Michaela?
Can you hear me? I have
Or-
Zach.
Hi.
Okay.
Can I go ahead?
Go ahead, Zach.
Okay. Zach,
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Speaking in favor of the rezone, I think the presenter brought up a great point about the parking coverage on the site. Right now, the current development on the site is very stereotypical auto-oriented development, kind of what we're trying to move away from in the city. I've been looking at the site on Google Street View, and there is absolutely zero engagement with the sidewalk on this building. There's even a big rocky climb steps to the entrance of the building that you would never even consider walking up unless you have business at that building. So I think that the TSA center has a very good advantage in that there's no required setback from the sidewalk. And I know it's kind of counterintuitive, but if you want a walkable neighborhood, you want a building right up next to the sidewalk where you can interact with that building. We as humans like sticky edges, and that's kind of what they're referred to as when you can interact with a space. Also, I think that the TSA urban center has a very good advantage in that there's no required parking spaces for residential use. And currently there's a max of 1 per dwelling unit. That may change with the update to the parking ordinance, but there isn't really a reason that this site needs to be dominated by parking being so close to tracks and even walkability to downtown. And that's it. Thanks.
Madam Chair, you're
Speak-
muted.
I'm sorry. I am not, actually.
I just unmuted you.
I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. So, are there any other members of the public who wish to speak, or have we heard Wayne or anyone from anyone else?
I don't have any other hands up.
No, no emails have come through either. So I think that's it.
All right. Thank you, Wayne. So I'm going to, hearing no others who would like to speak, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the Planning Commission for discussion.
My only just comment is a thing about developing the spot. I mean, I think I'm generally supportive of it, but I think Denver Street's a great kind of mid-block for that kind of north-south connection. But I know we're also looking at trying to ways to get east-west connections there. I'm trying to remember although I don't think the block just to the east of it with that new development actually has an east-west connection. I know there's some issues with the bank and everything else in that parking garage, but I know there was some talk about trying to get that there. And so if we do the future development here, that in the applicant comes back to this body for application, looking at also east-west connections is important, not just Denver Street as a way that we're breaking up these large blocks.
Okay. Would anyone else like to speak on this one? I actually have some. Go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, I think, I agree with Zach. I think getting rid of surface parking and increasing density is really one of our goals. And I think that this is a good way to do that.
Okay. I do have some comments of my own that I would like to make about this, which is that I'm actually opposed to this particular proposal. I think that this project can be easily developed with the redeveloped with the existing zoning, and I'll tell you why I don't want it to be changed. But the major reason for me is that we have to look at the different qualities of different streets. 4th South is a commercial street with tracks running through it, and therefore TSA UNC is, with its intensity, its height, its lining of retail shops, and so forth, is very appropriate. 5th South, on the other hand, has consistently, all the way from a little bit west of this side, all the way to up to 13th East, has this large setback, not a large setback, but a 5-foot setback off of a very large tree lawn, which creates an entirely different character. If you change this to the TSA UNC, you will not have that character reinforced here. You will still be able, if you do the RMU 45, you'll still be able to redevelop this property as residential with appropriate parking, and it will be in a different kind of character, more like South Temple in terms of the quality of the street, not a commercial street per se, not that it wouldn't have some kind of mixed use, but a street that's very comfortable and has a lot of landscaping along it. And so I don't actually see any reason to change this zoning at all. I think this was the intention of this, of zoning these things in this way. That setback, as I said, is consistent completely along that street. And this would definitely change that setback.
So Brenda actually had interesting thoughts originally, and I guess maybe what changed my mind, I'm curious on your feedback. Maybe it's just that it's a mistake, because it's a fine way to think about it too. But it was just when I looked at the zoning map, that from 5th East to 7th East on this block of 5th South is all the same zone, TSA, UNC. Then even if you cross 7th East along the 5th South kind of block, that's when it actually is a transition zone. And so which made me wonder, like, maybe are we intending this whole kind of 4th and 5th South block to be all TSA zone in the same way that kind of up from 4 South is. I mean, maybe the zoning of
The
this
zones,
block was a mistake but yeah. I mean, that was why I kind of shifted, like, I think it's appropriate because there's so many other places along around that corridor.
fifth east to the west, to the east is a historic zone. So that's kind of a completely different animal there. It's part of the historic district.
Okay.
But even so, currently those setbacks are in place everywhere there. Now, they may not be required in the future, but they are there now.
Right, because okay, because this block was Smith's, and then for lack of a better way to describe it, the Trader Joe's block are all say U and 5, the whole block. Okay.
Right.
But I get your point about, especially the 5th South and 6th South being such corridor streets because they are such heavy transportation, car-driven, get in and out of the city streets, that having them tree-lined with more setbacks is a nice feature.
And that pattern exists now, and that's why I'm thinking that was actually part of the master plan. I mean, we have to kind of respect the master plan as it is, in a sense. And if this were a really tight site where it'd be hard to build anything, that would be one thing. And we did have a situation with that actually on the other side of the street down the block. But this is not a tight site. There's plenty of room on this site to have that setback. I don't see any argument to go higher than another 5 floors. I just don't see any argument for this.
I don't know if staff has a response to Brenda's comment. That might be helpful for me.
I don't know, Nan, if you wanted to say anything, but the Central Community Master Plan, staff has found that there is intent language to change the master plan, that there are livable communities and neighborhoods, vital, sustainable commerce, unique active places, increasing pedestrian mobility and accessibility. And all the work that we do in our local historic district, one complaint with there's an incredible amount of development pressure on our local historic districts, particularly in Central City. We definitely need to balance those goals with also the need to provide housing, and staff has found enough policies in the master plan to support this, and recommend that you forward a positive recommendation. I don't want to diminish the quality of the setbacks on Fifth South.
For us in the master plan can be satisfactorily met with the existing zone. And if I remember reading it right, planning staff, drew these lines not that long ago in 2011, which in the planning world is like yesterday, right? So I feel like this RMU 45, which you can go up to 55 feet in that, is going to meet all of those things that we've been talking about in the master plan that we want to meet. Reduce the surface parking for sure, get more density and some residential housing in there, and still, yeah, I think I'm convinced that RMU is still the appropriate zone for
I'm
this.
sorry, I'm really losing it.
Commissioner Scheer, did you not hear my wonderful comments? Apparently not.
I heard them, Amy, so they did come through.
Well, good, because I don't want to repeat them.
My comments, I agree with Chair.
Brenda's back.
I don't know. I think our city's growing pretty quickly, and I think we need to start rethinking our density. And I think we should push for more density because it's going to reduce traffic. It's going to create more of a need for transit, which I think if we're going to make this, reduced parking scenario that we're really pushing for work, we need to increase transit, and the way to do that is to increase density. Increase the need for the transit, and the only way to do that is to start thinking about our city as a growing, larger city downtown. And I think, this is one of the ways that we can do that. I think being hesitant about it is going to impede the growth of the city and negatively impact, a lot of those elements that we're trying to push for. So that would be my comment on it.
One thing that I just want to point out as well, citing master plans, yes, 10 years ago, we did take a look at the transit station areas, but Plan Salt Lake was adopted after we did that work in the planning division, and it's pretty clear from Plan Salt Lake that we promote high density residential in areas that are served by transit. And reduce automobile dependency and single occupancy vehicle trips. We just lost Brenda. She's going to try to connect again.
Do we have a quorum with that, or?
No.
Well, to kill the time, is commercial required on the ground floor of a TSA zone? I saw on your map. Is it required, or is typically that sort of development?
The TSA UNC has, as part of the design standards requirement, it requires active ground floor uses, so it can't be a parking lot. It doesn't specifically require that the ground floor be commercial, though.
Active use. Okay.
Does that answer your question?
And it wouldn't be residential either.
Yeah.
Well, would that
could be
work?
residential, but it can't be. A live work would qualify as an active ground floor use.
But like walkout apartments or walkout condos would not.
That would qualify.
That would qualify. Okay.
I miscounted. We do have a quorum without Brenda.
Does this mean I have to take over?
Take over. Vice Chair Barry.
Okay. Well, if there's no more discussion, then I will entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion, but I feel bad doing it without Brenda here. I feel like I'm sneaking it in. So
It's okay. I think Brenda is would be fine with however you would do it with or without her. So
all right,
please go ahead.
to move forward, I'll say based on information, the staff report of the Planning Commission recommended the City Council approve the proposed master plan amendment as presented in petition PLN PCM 2020-0084. Additionally, I also move the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council approve the proposed zoning map amendment as presented in PLN PCM 2020-00806.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded or motion by Matt, seconded by Crystal. So just to clarify, Michaela, we have enough of a quorum without me voting, right?
I wasn't the second, Amy, for the.
Yes,
Sorry.
we have quorum. Vice Chair, you would not vote.
That's okay. I just wanted to double check on that. I'm sorry,
we're
then
good.
was it Maureen that seconded?
It was me. It was Maureen.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I have a motion by Matt and a second by Maureen. I'm gonna take the roll call as I think I have it, but if I miss somebody, pipe up. Matt?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Agree.
John?
Yes.
Crystal?
No.
Okay, Maureen?
Yes.
Okay, with that, the motion passes. 4 yes votes, 1 no vote. And I guess we'll move on.
Amy, Brenda said that she was trying to call in, but she wasn't successful in trying to call in to vote. I just wanted to put that on the record.
Okay.
You can't. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Then we will conclude that one. We'll move on to our next item on the agenda, which is the ADU conditional use at 772 South Glendale Street. PLN PCM 2020-00566. And I do believe Chrissy is up for presenting on this one.
And I just need the presenter ball. Got it.
Sorry, Chrissy, getting so many text messages.
That's okay.
Thank you. Related to this meeting, of course.
Okay. So this petition for conditional use is for a detached ADU to be placed in the rear yard of an existing single-family dwelling on a lot located at approximately 722 South Glendale Street. The ADU is 420 square feet and would be located above a new detached 2-car garage. The subject parcel is located in the R1 5000 single-family residential zone. And while this aerial image is up, you can see that it's bordered by 800 South on the bottom of the site and then an alleyway to the west. And staff is recommending approval with conditions. So the proposed detached ADU will be located in the rear of the property adjacent to the alleyway, which is just cut off of the site plan, but it's on the left side of the screen. And the entrance would face west towards the alley. The ADU would be approximately 428 square feet, and the building footprint of the garage would be approximately 577 square feet. The ADU has a shed roof measured at approximately 20 feet in height, which is just under the height of the primary structure. The setbacks are approximately 10 feet from both the rear and interior side lot property lines, which qualify the ADU to be above the typical 17 feet height limit. Pedestrian access goes through the concrete driveway to 800 South, which is shown with using the blue arrow. The parking for the ADU is proposed on 800 South. The required parking space may be located on the property or on the street if legal on-street parking is available in front of the property or if the property is within a 4th mile of a transit stop. In this case, on-street parking space is provided and an UTA bus stop is located on 1000 West, which is approximately a 4th mile from the property.
And just as another site, approximately a 1/4 mile from the entrance of the Jordan River Trailway, which gives regional bike access and trail access. So due to the availability of street parking and public transit access, as well as active transportation access, adverse parking impacts for the proposed ADU are not anticipated. So this site shows the proposed elevations. You can see that the proposed ADU in comparison to the primary structure, and the ADU does meet the setback requirements for additional height, as I mentioned. And then you can also see that the entrance for the garage faces 800 South, while the stairs for the ADU are on the west facade of the structure toward the alleyway. This slide shows the site photos. So image 1 is a view of the primary structure. Image 2 is the area of the rear yard where the ADU is proposed. The garage shown in red and the carport would be demolished. And then image 3 is the alleyway that abuts the ADU and the garage, which you can see in red. And then image 4 is the proposed on-street parking area. So the curb cut shown at the top of the image is the curb cut for the driveway to the garage and ADU. So as far as public comments, staff received one comment with just general questions, and they did not indicate a position, and then one comment in support of the proposal. And staff did not receive input from the Poplar Grove Community Council. So in conclusion, the proposal generally meets all applicable standards as discussed in attachments D and E of the staff report, and staff is recommending that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use with conditions. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions the commissioners may have, and I believe the applicant is also on the line.
Okay, thank you, Chrissy. Does any commissioners have questions for staff? Okay, with that, we can move on to the applicant. Is it Alexis Suggs?
I think that Dave is on the phone.
Okay.
Can we move him up to a panelist if he hasn't been?
There we go. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can,
Okay.
Dave. If you want to go
So,
ahead and give a presentation, you'll have 10 minutes. But if you want to use less, feel free.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I don't really have a specific presentation, but I am happy to entertain any questions from anybody else. Yeah.
Okay. Do commissioners have any questions right now for the applicant? We can always ask them again after the public comment as well. Okay, seeing and hearing none, I will open the public comment period. Michaela, is anyone from the Poplar Grove Community Council on board to speak?
I don't see anyone. However,
I don't know how to see if people have raised their hands, so I will take your
Zachary,
cue.
yes, but Zachary DeSalt has raised his hand, and I will unmute him. Zach?
Zachary Dussault, speaking in favor of the application. I think this is a great site for an ADU. Just been looking on Google Maps here. The site is a 10-minute walk to the nearest grocery store, which is the Smith's, about 2 blocks to the east. It's got great biking access with the north-south Jordan River Trail, and then just a little bit to the south is the 9 line running east and west. I think this would be a great place for a person without a car to live, depending on their work situation, whether or not they're able to work from home or an easy bike commute to either downtown or kind of central cities. I'm not going to go over my whole reasons for why ADUs are good. That's kind of, you guys have heard that a million times from me already. I just think this is a great spot for it. I think parking is really the #1 issue that we discuss with things like this, but I think this is a great area where you would rarely have to use your car. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Zach. Anyone else, Michaela?
I don't see any other hands up. However, and there are no emails.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commissioners at this point. Any discussion for staff or applicant? Okay, if somebody wants to give me a motion, that would be wonderful.
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead on and do that.
Thank you.
Based on the findings listed in the staff report, the information presented, and input received during the public hearing, I move that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use request regarding PLN PCM 2020-00566 as proposed, subject to complying with the conditions listed in the staff report.
Okay. Any second?
Second.
Is that John?
Yes.
Great. Okay, I have a motion from Carolyn and a second from John. We'll go down the roll call. Matt?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Agree.
John?
Yes.
Crystal?
Yes.
And Maureen?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. We will move on now to our third agenda item. This is a conditional use application for 1781 South, 500 East, PLN PCM 2020-00939 for another ADU. And Mayara is presenting on this one.
Okay, give me one second. Share. Okay. So this request is for a detached ADU to be built above a two-car garage, a new two-car garage at 1785 South 500 East. The property is located in the R1 5000 zoning district and therefore requires a conditional use approval. The proposed ADU will be located on the rear of the property near the alley. The existing house on the property is going to be demolished and a new house built in its place. The ADU will be behind the new house and access from the alley. And as you can see on this site plan, the ADU will not be readily visible from the street. The proposed ADU would be 480 square feet in footprint and will contain one bedroom, one bathroom, and combined kitchen and living room. The structure will be set back 10 feet from north and south property lines, 20 feet from the east property line. Parking for the ADU is proposed on site on a parking pad located north of the structure. The ADU will be 20 feet 10 inches tall, which is 1 inch lower than the proposed new house on the property. I don't have any image of the elevations of the new house here, but that's included in the staff report or as attachment to the staff report. These photos here show the property as it is right now, the house that will be demolished, and the bottom photo shows the rear of the property where the ADU is proposed. These other photos here show the rear from the alley, as seen from the alley, and then the alley as seen from Wilson Avenue. Given the 20-foot rear setback proposed for the ADU, the structure will not be visible from Wilson Avenue as well. Because the proposed ADU meets all the zoning standards, including those for the conditional use, staff is recommending that the commission approve the request with the conditions listed in the staff report, which are the typical conditions we impose on ADUs. We received 2 public comments and those were included in the staff report. I am available for any questions if you have any.
Thanks, Mayara. Does commissioners have any questions for her? Say it again. Did somebody speak up? I have a question, Mayara, and one of the comments you received was from someone in the public asking about occupancy. Did you reply to them?
I did, but I talked to the applicant just yesterday or the day before, and he can speak to that a little bit more, but this is an investment property. So it will be sold with the condition that the new owner would have to occupy.
Okay, I just wondered if you also responded to that community member that emailed you.
I didn't have the opportunity to, sorry.
Okay, is that something that we can request you do after
Absolutely.
the vote, just to let them help with education on that? Great.
Yeah.
Okay, if there are no other questions from commissioners.
So this is an investment property, and the owner knows he needs to move in.
He will be selling the property.
With the ADU built.
Yes, and then the new owner would have to live in one of the units.
Okay.
Okay, is the applicant here to give a presentation?
The applicant is on the line. I passed him the ball. Troy, I'm going to unmute you.
Yes, please.
Oh,
yes,
great.
I'm here. Troy Rawlings speaking.
Okay, hello, Mr. Rollins. You will have 10 minutes to give your presentation. If you want to take less, feel free, but the time is now yours.
Okay. So I really don't have much more to add in addition to Mayara. She covered all the most important parts. You know, it is currently there's a single family home. It's settled quite a bit. It is pretty much in inhabitable condition. It will be torn down and replaced with a really nice single family home with a detached garage in the back. The detached garage will have an ADU above that is approximately 480 square feet. The dimensions of the garage is 20 by 24. It will be set back from about 10 feet from the north and the south side and 20 feet from the alleyway. There will be alleyway access. The single family home, there will be two car parks in the garage, and then the ADU will have a parking space to the north of the ADU. So there will be no off-street parking. What else do you need to know? I mean, that's pretty much about it. And as Mayara alluded that, yes, it is an investment, but I am redeveloping the property to resell it. And we have filed with the county and the city and will be tied to title saying that this property must be owner occupied. So, yeah. And that's all I have to present.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rollins. At this time, I will ask if there are any commissioners that have any questions for you. Okay, hearing none. I will move to open the public hearing. Michaela, is anybody present from the community council?
I don't see anyone present from the community council, and I only see one hand up, and that's Zach DeSalt.
Okay.
Zach?
Hi, Zachary Dussault speaking in favor of the application. I think this use case kind of highlights a unique thing that we can do with ADUs, and by allowing this lot to be redeveloped, have two dwelling units on it instead of one. That's going to increase the range that someone who might be looking to buy this house, that's going to kind of up their range in what they consider affordable because they'll be able to have a rental unit included. So I know this isn't usually what we see with ADUs, but I think this highlights another way that they're very useful, and like someone might not be able to afford a $400,000 house on their own, but if they had a renter helping subsidize that mortgage, they could afford a home in that situation. I also just want to highlight the bus service on 500 East with 30-minute frequencies north-south connecting to downtown, as well as I've been biking through these streets. There's not really any dedicated bike lanes, but usually traffic east-west at least is slow enough where you can go to a street with a bike lane. I don't really think I have anything else to add. Thanks.
Thanks, Zach.
Okay, with anything else, Michaela?
Yes, M. Thorne, and I see the hand coming up and down and up and down, so I'm going to call on this person. I'm not sure your first name. Mr. or Mrs. Thorne, would you like to speak to this item?
Am I muted? Can you hear me?
I've unmuted you.
Yeah. So I do have.
Okay, just 1 second. If you could state your name for the record, and then please proceed. You'll have 2 minutes to give your comments.
Okay, I Michael Thorne.
Great, thank you.
And I live on 5th East, in the block where this proposal is to be. And I have concerns. One, in that this is proposed by a person who already has purchased 2 houses within this block, which has been turned into rental properties. And then he's proposing to do this one and add another rental property on there and sell it, which he has no sort of investment then in that block himself. And I feel that, you know, this single individual is turning this entire block into rentals, and I don't necessarily see that as a good thing for the rest of us who live on the block. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Thorne. Anybody else, Michaela?
I do not have anyone else. Let me check. And Wayne said that no emails have come in.
Okay, with that, then I will close the public hearing, and I will bring it back to the commissioners to ask if you have, at this time, questions or comments to staff or the applicant. Okay, I actually do, Mayara. If you could just give a brief rundown for the benefit of Mr. Thorne, the conditional use occupancy requirements for ADUs, and then how that then transfers to, say, a new owner.
So that will, with the conditional use approval, they will have to record a deed. And I believe Troy Rawlings already did that. I'll have to look into the details of how that was done. But the deed will require that the owner must occupy one of the units. It could be the ADU or the house. And that will be a restriction that will go with the property, no matter who owns it. So although the applicant is not intending to live in one of the units, once it is completed, the owner of that property will have to move into one of the units. He's still going through the process of building permit and everything, so it's okay that he is not intending to live in one of the units as of now, because there's no structure at this point.
Okay, thank you, Myra. Commissioners, anything else you want to bring up or add? All right, then I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, thank you, Maureen.
Based on the information listed in the staff report, the information presented, and the input received during the public hearing, I move the commission approve the request for conditional use for an ADU at 1785 South 500 East, as presented in petition PLN PCM 2020-00939, with the conditions listed in the staff report.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Carolyn. Okay, I have a motion by Maureen and a second by Carolyn. I'll go down for a roll call. Matt?
Yes, there's a small comment. I find this is an interesting or unique use case that I've got some mixed feelings about, but I don't see any of the conditions or standards that would apply to turning it down. So, yes.
Okay, Carolyn?
Agree.
John?
Yes.
Crystal?
Yes.
Okay, and Maureen?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you for that. With that, we actually conclude the public hearing portion of tonight's Planning Commission meeting. Thanks to everyone for moving that along. We will now enter a work session, which is not an actual public hearing. This is from, I believe, Planning Director Nick Norris, the Planning Division Annual Report.
Thank you. Hopefully everybody can see the screen okay. All right, we're just gonna quickly go through, maybe if I get my screen to advance. There we go. Just some of the basics over the last year, some things that you guys already know about, but some things that maybe you don't, and then a look ahead towards the next year. So here's some stats from your meetings. One of the really interesting things I think about 2020 versus 2019 is that you reviewed, I think I said this before, like 42 more agenda items in 2020, but your meetings were about 30 minutes shorter. Well, 40 minutes shorter, which is kind of an interesting phenomenon, and I have no idea if that's a reflection of just having so many agenda items and long meetings, and so there's a tendency to move through them quicker, or if it has something to do with having more virtual meetings.
Did we just have a couple of meetings that were like really short? I feel like recently these meetings have been forever, minus last week and this week, and I'm like shocked at that sort of.
There were a couple of meetings early last year that were really short, that were under an hour. And that probably skewed it a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Some of the things that you guys approved. So last year, between the Planning Commission and the Landmarks Commission, the two bodies approved more than 3,700 housing units, which is, I think, our biggest annual number we've had. So that's a pretty significant thing. An interesting note about the housing units is that when you guys approve them, it'll be probably 2 to 3 years before those come online. And so it's hard to recognize the immediate benefit because it's delayed several years. And then those buildings take sometimes months to actually fill up. And so it's not an immediate or quick impact to the housing issues we're facing. 81% of all of the housing units were within a half mile of transit. The biggest one that was outside of that, and it's not fully outside of it, it just doesn't have great transit access, was the Post District, which accounted for 16% of the housing units approved. Unfortunately, only 6% of the units were considered affordable housing, and that's units that were tied to some funding source that required them to be affordable. To give you an idea of what the Planning Division is looking at and looking like as far as workloads, our total applications were down over 2019. 2019 was the busiest year we've ever had with land use applications, but we were pretty much on par with our 10-year average of applications. So that was actually a pretty, I think we anticipated being down quite a bit with the unknowing what the pandemic was going to bring. But the second half of the year really picked up, as you know, by the length of your meetings and everything you saw. One of the things that's kind of interesting about these numbers are, if you look at the things that are up. So the appeals look like they're up a lot. That's up like 4 or 5 applications, because we just do not get a lot of appeals filed. The Landmarks Commission items was really surprising that it was down almost 23%. And that's because we've had 2 events that impacted our historic districts pretty significantly and damaged properties and would have required historic approvals that was the earthquake and the wind event in the fall. The Landmarks Commission will, in terms of number of applications, is usually our highest grouping of applications that we get. Most of those are approved at the staff level, and most of those are done at the planning counter. But you can see total applications, things that fit in the planning commission category. Some of those are staff approvals, but they're up 23%. Subdivisions were up, and then our zoning administration was up as well. But this is where this gets a little bit, this is just a recap. You can see we are 1.8% over our 10-year average. So basically the same. This is where those applications differ, though, is the amount of time, staff time it takes to process. So these are the estimated hours. We keep track every couple of years of how long it takes to process each step in every application we have and how much staff time is spent for each of those. And so the planning commission, even though it represented, I think, 20-something% of our total applications, eats up almost 50% of our time as far as staff time goes. And you can see it's about a third greater than the Landmarks Commission. And you can see some of the other things. One of the things that this shows is, so our staffing levels in the planning division are basically equal to the staff hours it takes to process our applications. So if you were we have 19 planners that process most of the applications. We have 2 at the planning counter who will do some basic quick things, and we don't necessarily include those in our totals here. So if you factor out holidays, the average amount of personal time, vacation time that each employee takes per year, that comes out to be right around 37,000 total hours, staff hours per calendar year. And so you can see that we're basically right there. And what that means is that we struggle to find time to update our plans and our codes and analyzing those things and producing reports that help decision makers understand where we are as a city and the growth related issues. Again, this is kind of a little bit repetitive, but that box on the right hand side kind of provides a little insight into some of the other things our staff does that is not related to applications that eat up considerable amount of our time. For example, right now I'm spending probably 50% of my working hours dealing with state legislature and issues like that, and helping the city formulate positions and trying to work on getting bills modified. Those are things that aren't accounted for in here, but it gives you an idea of the other things that we do. The city has gotten much better over the years at removing silos and coordinating on projects that maybe aren't planning related, but we are involved in almost every transportation project, almost every parks project, and almost every big public utilities type of thing and street thing. So those are things that people don't often know that we're involved in, because we're just not the lead agency on that. Coming up for 2021, based on what we're seeing, we actually anticipate a decrease in applications. That's primarily due to the special exception changes that you guys sent on to the city council late last year. And that's dependent on when those get, and if they get adopted, I guess. But we're pretty much on track right now, about the same as last year as far as applications. We have a number of big projects that are going to be coming through the planning commission, and some of these you've probably heard about a little bit. Some are more have already submitted applications and some haven't. But obviously, we have the Utah Theater site, which has been in the news quite a bit and is fairly controversial because it includes the demolition of the old Utah Theater, the Pantages Theater. There's a potential large project on the northeast corner of 300 South and 200 East. It's also had some media coverage of it. It's a very tall residential tower. The 24-hour fitness site in Sugar House, it includes 2 buildings on 2 different parcels. The Lamplighter Square on Foothill is likely to be submitted this sometime this calendar year as well. The Snellgrove site on 2100 South is already submitted. We've got a number of projects that are brewing in the Granary, the Depot, and the North Temple areas. So lots of big projects coming through. And the mayor a couple of weeks ago released her goals for 2021. Some of these are carried over from 2020 that we couldn't get to due to having to shift resources to respond to the pandemic, and just complications related to that and our other natural disasters that we had to face as a city. But we have 2 that are underway. So the North Point Small Area Plan, this is the 2200 West corridor north of the airport, where there's a number of annexations that have been proposed over the years. And it's becoming a little bit of a hot point in terms of controversy and disagreement with the city and some of the neighboring jurisdictions and the community. So the city council funded a small area plan for that. That's out for RFP right now. It closes, I think, next week. And then once we get a consultant on board, that will start going through that process. It's 100% a consultant project. So the only thing that we're going to be doing with that project is managing the contract and reviewing the work, and that's about it. We've submitted a grant application to develop new building height standards for our entire downtown area. That's everything from the Granary on the south up through the Gateway, Central Business District, and basically everything west of 200 East and to I-15 and from North Temple to 900 South. So that if we get that grant, we'll know, I think, in March whether we do, because that funding source doesn't get released until July 1st. It'll start the second half of this year. One of the mayor's goals relates to tech-related land uses. Our land use definitions are pretty archaic when it comes to these types of uses, and they're very limited in where they can go. And so we'll be working on some text amendments, adding definitions and adding those uses to various zoning districts throughout the city, not just right now it's primarily in industrial areas and business parks, but we want to bring those things more to the downtown, Sugar House, et cetera. A couple of the big projects that we're really hoping that we have resources to get to this year, I know that they're related to some of the mayor's really important priorities around the ballpark, includes the 300 West corridor and adopting the Life on State plan that was done, I think it was finished maybe 2 years ago now, 2.5 years ago. And then we just haven't had a chance to adopt it, but associated zoning changes along the State Street, Main Street corridors south of downtown. The 300 West project would correspond with the rebuild of that street. If you haven't heard about what's happening on 300 West from 2100 South to about 900 South, the complete rebuild of the street, adding a 2-way bike lane, wider sidewalks where they're missing, street trees, and a transformation. So we want to capitalize on that work and update the master plan and the zoning for that area. And I know that was something that the Planning Commission brought up a few meetings ago as well. So between that and the Life on State, there's going to be a heavy focus around that, the ballpark track station, as well as the 2100 South track station. And then hopefully in about a month, we'll be, if things stay as they are going and we don't have any unforeseen circumstances. The affordable housing overlay proposal will be released with some options on how that works. We are looking at it a citywide type of overlay. So we anticipate a fairly high level of controversy with that. But it's something that the city needs to have a discussion about and figure out where to go. We still have a number of things sitting in front of the city council that you guys have looked at. Some of these are picking up a little steam. Some of them have had multiple briefings and hopefully we'll get moving. Some of them are kind of on hold a little bit pending some potential legislation at the state is considering right now. And so we're kind of holding and waiting and seeing on some of those. The housing related ones, the RMF 30, the shared housing, are probably, they're tentatively scheduled to be picked back up again this spring. The biggest thing that those are waiting for, at least with the RMF 30, is the housing loss mitigation ordinance, which has been kind of stalled. And we're hoping to revive that over this year as well. The planning division is not going to be the lead on that, but we'll be heavily involved. The parking ordinance, the council has it on their briefing agenda for next Tuesday. So that we'll start that discussion as well. And I think you all are fairly familiar with that ordinance, even though it's been over a year since you saw it. It basically changes how the city regulates parking. So instead of going how it is now, where it's all uses regardless of where it is, it's more of a district-based type of approach. But it has other modes of transportation increase in the city. It helps us potentially move some of those zoning districts around, or another factor to consider when we're considering zoning amendments. And I think that's, so the Sugar House, the Fleet Block and the FBUN3 are both moving forward. I anticipate the FBUN3 gets adopted, but not mapped on the Fleet Block first, which is important to us because that zone was written to replace some of our heavy commercial zoning districts along 300 West. And so we want to make sure that we really want that zone to be an option for us. And if it's adopted, it just makes it easier. The Sugar House design standards are kind of pending, waiting for the state legislature. There's a bill at the legislature right now that basically would strip and prohibit cities from regulating certain building design elements. And so we're working on the legislature to try to get that changed a little bit. And hopefully we make some progress on that.
I'm pretty sure a lot of that's been stripped out.
Yeah, well, we're hearing that. I don't want to say too much because just because it's a negotiation and we're heavily involved with that bill. So one thing that we want to focus on more this year, and it's something that the Planning Commission has requested over the year, and it's likely and possible that there may be some required training for planning commissions put into state law. And so we wanted to get your input on, and it doesn't have to be now, on what types of training topics you want that will help you guys through your decision-making process. We know there's a number of things where we can walk you through some of the legalities of some of our processes. We can refresh you on some of the processes and what happens and what some of our land use regulations are, some of the development issues we're facing. So you guys are more in tune to those types of things. But we also want to be flexible so that if there is a requirement in state law for more than just the Open Meetings Act and conflict of interest and things like that, that we can work those things in too. And I think I can't remember what bill this is in. It's kind of buried, but it may be something where each planning commissioner has to have like 4 or 5 hours of training a year. So we'll have to work that in, and that includes I think there was something that said like you have to participate in the Open Meetings Act training before you can actually attend and participate in a commission meeting, things like that. So we're open to any ideas that you may have on that. I think that was my end of my presentation. It was quick. One thing that I do want you to know that we are working on and trying to work our time, finding time to do it, is some sort of, and this was Commissioner Barry's recommendation or ask of us to put together kind of a self-guided, whether it's virtual or something you can see on the ground, a self-guided tour of past approvals to see how they compare to what they looked like when they came to the commission and how they turn out. And it's a good opportunity to see some lessons learned and go from there. Plus, it's interesting just to see how things are happening. So many things are happening throughout the city that you don't always get to visit all parts of the city, so you may miss out on some of those things, both big and small. So that is all I had. Oh, one thing I did want to announce, and I don't think it happened earlier, but so Mayara is actually leaving the planning division to she is moving over to building services to help kind of be an ombudsman for people who are kind of stuck in the process, to help move them through and get all of the people, various city departments and divisions to communicate when there's a breakdown and to get things moving quicker. So we're sad to leave her, but she's going to be absolutely fantastic in that role. And that's it. Any questions?
Nick, I do. Would you, once the legislature is over, can we get one of these type of presentations on what happened in this last session that affects us? Like a rundown of everything?
Yep, we will definitely do that.
My comment would be that I would welcome all of those training topics.
Yeah, when I think about the trainings, Nick, I feel like there may be an opportunity to have like a training, a 101 for new commissioners, you know, that really spell out a lot of things that it takes so long to figure out on your own as you muddle through. So I think one of the trainings could be just a basic 101. And then that every new commissioner needs to go through, and because I don't think we can assume that we all come in with the same amount of knowledge by any means. And then yeah, any of those other trainings I think we could benefit from throughout our tenures, no matter what our background is.
As the newest member of this commission, I would heavily welcome that.
We will get that scheduled as soon as we can.
Yeah, and I think not only a breakdown of kind of the legalities of the standards of like how you have to, what you look at for your criteria, but I think one of the things that I remember just I didn't realize, or I was really shocked that I hadn't realized this before, was you know, what are the legal parameters for this stuff that we talk about? The conditional use being like the biggest one that really shocked me. Because I think when I was really involved in community stuff, obviously for a decade before this, the focus for communities is all master plan. And then that as a commissioner is not the focus. It's there and it's this overarching guide, but then there's all these other things that I never realized were how you had to base your decisions. So I think that that's something that really has continued to stick with me. And it probably took me 1 to 2 years to really work through all of that. And a good 101 could maybe jumpstart and lessen that 2-year time frame of feeling like you're still trying to figure it all out.
Yep, got it. We will certainly do what we can.
Anybody else, any other commissioners have any questions or comments for Nick? I'm sure if you have ideas on trainings that he will welcome them via email at any time, or anything else based on the presentation. Crystal, you have something?
Yeah, it's probably a dumb question as the newest member of the commission, but is there somewhere where I can easily see the existing master plans that exist and
Yeah,
educate myself more on them?
You can. They are all on our website, slcgov.com /planning, and then there's a more info button, and there's a whole master plan page that lists all of them, from the community plans down to the small area plans. There's a lot of them, just so you know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, with that, I am going to adjourn our meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.